remember being in that refugee camp. There were nights where we did not even have food, not even food. And my mom would go and we would get bread and we would dip it in tea to eat it. And as I was eating that, I would always think, I wonder who else, I'm so lucky, I wonder who else in this camp that doesn't even have that. So no matter where you are, no matter who is listening to this episode, is think of all the good things. Don't focus on, if you're going to focus on a ditch, you're going to end up being in a ditch.
All right, here we go. Well, welcome back to the REI Money Matrix. I am Scott Ulmer, your host, and with me today, I am joined by an amazing woman, and I'm just getting to know her, but her story is absolutely captivating, and I'm excited to hear more about it. I'm joined by Tahani Aburaneh, and we practiced before we recorded. I get it right?
Yes, right. You have. Yes, it's wonderful.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Honored to have you as my guest. And as I shared at the intro, you have a very fascinating story. And rather than me try to piece it together, can you kind of walk us through your background and kind of share with our viewers a little about how you got to where you are? And I know you were born in a refugee camp, which is obviously very interesting. I'd love to hear about that. So can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, of course. I would love to share. And it's funny because there is the story of me getting into real estate, and then there's the story of where I was born, and maybe we can kind of share a bit about both. So I was born in a refugee camp in Jordan, Amman. And at age 15, one day I was still 15 years old, coming home from a normal, actually it was a beautiful winter day in February because it's not so much snow there. As I was approaching and getting closer to my home, I was hearing there was a party. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what's happening in my house. I walk in, open the door, and then everybody's like, congratulations, as if it was like a surprise. And I'm like, about what? What just happened? And then I just hear this noise, because I honestly still don't know who said it, that someone said, you just got married.
Wow, I was not expecting that. So what was your reaction?
Stunned, shocked. And all I can remember is this voice came back again. And not only you're getting married, but you're also going to Canada. And that was, again, another shock. So it's like the difference between life here and life there is like day and night, like totally different, you know? So it was a lot. And I remember I was crying as a little girl to my dad, and I'm like, Dad, please don't let me go. I don't know what to do without you and my mom. And I remember my dad, you know, me in front of him at that moment saying to me that, Tahani, I believe in you and you are capable of achieving anything and everything you want. That, or those words, stuck in my head, Scott, to the point where I've actually lived on my life believing that I'm capable of doing anything and everything I can. I mean, every little girl wants to listen to her dad and believe in what dad, you know, says. And I took on with me. But the other thing that he said at the same time is that, Tahani, this is not about you. This is about the whole family. It's about your family in Jordan, which means that I'm going to Canada to make it better for me, but also make it better for my brothers. I have 6 brothers. God bless me with 6 brothers and 2 sisters. So it wasn't just only about me. But you can only imagine, Scott, and I don't know if you have kids.
I have a 15-year-old daughter. I was just getting ready to tell you. So when you said that at 15, I am, I've got some thoughts in my mind that, yes, that's so pretty heavy duty.
Imagine, it's a different country, different language. Being married is huge. Not only that, and now you have to take care of your family that you're going to leave behind. And I'll tell you, as a 15-year-old girl, and as a 15-year-old girl for your daughter, we're even different. I didn't know much. Hardly knew anything. At the time, I didn't even speak to men. I didn't know how to speak to others. I didn't know much, like just an innocent young girl. And coming here was a huge transformation. So the one thought that I have, Scott, in my mind, as your listeners are listening to this, they might think, yeah, but Tahani, your story is different than mine. I'll never be born in a refugee camp and it's different. But we all share that there are things that happens in our lives that are beyond our control, things that happen to us because of maybe something else happened. Example, COVID-19, it was beyond of our control. And the most important lesson that I can say to anyone that's listening to this, whether it's COVID, whether it's health issues, divorce, anything else, a loss of job, it's really about you and what you do with it versus about what's happened to you. So that's the number one thing, is that how adaptable you are, and how can you look at, okay, well, this happened to me. I cannot control that situation. I can't blame thing on the economy. I can't blame it on the king. What can I do right now to move my life forward and make the best of this situation?
Yeah, so basically, and I think two things that I took from that right off the bat were, one is your mindset. Is your father gave you a very strong piece of advice that here you are years later, still living by that credo. But mindset is just so important, as we all know, to everything you do. It's your perspective and certainly your approach. But I think the other thing that's one of my favorites is it's how you respond to the adversity. It's going to happen to everybody. Nobody's immune from curveballs in life and things happening, but how you respond is just so critical. Not what happens, but how you respond. And so I'm sure that it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. In fact, I'm sure it was the opposite of that. But clearly, you had this grit inside that pushed through and a good outlook, and you responded to the adversity. So I've got to ask you. So moving 15 years old, getting married, moving from home to another country, what's probably halfway across the world, and what was that like? What were some of the memories you have when you first got to Canada?
Huge. The one thing is, I was really shocked of how life is like in Canada. I mean, coming from a school of only girls to coming to a school of boys and girls, and all of that. But the thing that was really shocking is that I thought I would be shocked of how different it is. But the students at the high school I went to, they were also as shocked. How could a 15-year-old girl be married and still come to school? And so there was all these differences, not just only on one side, but on both sides. So so I knew from a young age, is like, you never judge. It's like, what's different to one person, maybe normal and usual to another. So that's also huge. And I just had to kind of deal with marriage life and going to school. And that's another thing too, is that I realized that my dad, did what he did, and my mom, out of love, because he did not have the money to send me to school. He knew I was a smart young girl, but he doesn't have the means to do that for me. So he did it out of love, and he says, go on and finish your higher education. And he talked to my ex-husband then that, this is one of the things that I, only ask of, if she's good, to just let her continue school. And that was my focus. Everybody needs something to strive for, and that's even for real estate, investors. And for me, it was finishing high school. Once I finished high school, it was finishing university. No one around me believed that I would be able to juggle all these things, having 2 part-time jobs, going to school, high school at the time, being married and attending to my wifey duty. But I had the one focus, and that is, I have to go to school. My teachers actually instilled that in me, because my teacher told me that education is everything, and it truly is, no matter who you are and what you are and what you want to do. And 100% is what you do here is education. You are educating investors on some of the strategies or anything and everything else about real estate investing.
Yeah, very good. So, just a curiosity point. What was the biggest difference in Canada and Jordan? What was the one thing that stuck out the most when you first got there?
It's really, I would say that at the beginning is a school, high school, how I saw boys and girls holding hands and kissing, and I've never saw that. Not even on TV, not even on TV, So that's for me was the biggest difference. Yeah.
Gotcha. Very good. Well, fast forward the tape a bit. How did you get started in real estate?
So I think I was born with an entrepreneurial spirit, because even when I was in the refugee camp, I would come up with ideas, teach them to my brothers, because they're the men, they're the males. They would go out in the market, they would sell it, and then we would make money and split that. So I must have had that entrepreneur spirit. Nobody taught me. I just kind of, would look and see it. So when I came to Canada, I had a brother who used to sell some stuff in a flea market. And he came to me and he's like, you know what? Like, I mean, I would like to get some more toys and sell them in a flea market. Can you help me? Well, I'm like, why sell in a flea market? Why not have a store? Why not have a bigger store? Why not? So I started like, going, and it was really challenging, because getting money for a business, as you already know, is very, very challenging. Banks don't like to loan money. But I was able to go from there to opening the first dollar store in my area, in my town, at the time, in the early 90s, to making that store thrive from like almost nothing to, it was just the dollar store downtown this area. And while I was doing that, a real estate brokerage, a broker manager would come and would buy gum, water, anything like that, coffee. And then he would look at me talking to other clients. It's like, you should get into real estate. I think you would be awesome at real estate. I think so. He put that idea. So when the dollar store was thriving, I told my brother, it's time for me to move and to get my real estate license. At the time, Scott, even though my ex-husband bought and sold houses, but I would only go to sign papers, not knowing what the heck I was signing. So I've never really went through the experience of buying or selling. And I went into that business purely by that feeling of this manager, very well-respected manager, telling me that I would be good at it. And then, and that's how I started in real estate.
Very neat. It's almost like being discovered. Somebody just saw your raw talents one day and
Never thought about that.
kind of spurred you on there. So you started out. You got your real estate license. So were you kind of as an agent, broker type, listing and selling initially?
Yes, I was listing, selling, and it would go up and it would go down. It's almost like the cynical of a real estate business. But one day I had, when I went through the divorce, 22 years later after marriage, I went through a divorce. I needed to work, and I went on to ask for work. Anybody that I saw, I'm like, do you want to buy or sell? I'm willing to, bring you the house or whatever property, I'll find it for you. I found a friend of mine who I met at high school when I was in an English as a second language class. And his name is Ash. And I said, Ash, are you looking for a house? He goes, I'm not looking for a house, but I'm looking for an investment property. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm looking for something that needs work, and I want to like fix it and sell it. What he was talking is about flipping. That's what he was really looking for, a flip. And I'm like, I'm going to go find it for you. I went to find it for him. Not even 3.5 months later, we would sell it and he would make a profit of 48,000. And that's when the light bulb went in my head. I'm like, oh my God, this is how much one can make. And this is as a part-time, because he's a mechanic, he's a car mechanic. So he wasn't even a full-time investor. And that's when I became obsessed and very focused. That same sharp focus that I had, to finish school, I put it into real estate, and the rest is like they say, history.
Fantastic. Yeah, you said I'm on the wrong side of this transaction. I'm doing a lot of legwork and I'm getting paid a commission to do it, but the long dollar, the big money is in buying and selling. And so yeah, the light bulb went off, and so you focused your sights on ultimately becoming the investor and the flipper. And so from that point, tell us what happened. So you obviously got a taste of obviously listing, selling, seeing an investor that you knew from high school, made a big profit, and you said, I need to do that. What happened next?
So I became well-known, the go-to person for investors, because I became obsessed, learning about this industry and what it can not only do. I wasn't even thinking what it can do for me, to be honest, Scott. At the beginning, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I got to share this with my other investors. There's got to be other people out there that want to do the same thing. And that started rolling in. And that's actually, the more money I made as a realtor, I started saving money. And then I started, buying my first investment, second, third. And I was lucky enough also at the time to be working with a new home builder that I did so well for him. And I told him, I don't need my commissions. If we can maybe keep that commissions to buy like a house or two in his development. And I did. And after the divorce, it took about 4.5 years. So I didn't know I could actually buy a house at the time. I went to the bank to try and see if I can open an account for myself, because I didn't have an account for myself. God bless that bank manager. He opened an account for me and he told me, Tahani, you gotta buy a house. I'm like, I don't know if I can buy a house. I was crying at his office. I don't think I'm good enough to buy a house. I don't think I can buy a house. He's like, yes, you can. What happened is that he helped me, and I went on to buy a newer semi in an area that was about 240,000 at the time that I bought a semi, like two houses together, if you know. Yeah. And 4.5 years later, with my being so focused and nothing else I was thinking about but working and helping others, I realized that I paid off my whole mortgage in 4.5 years, and I had about 9 other houses.
Good for you. That's phenomenal. I mean, 4.5, that is phenomenal. And
Thank
so as we, and I've got some questions, we'll kind of go forward and back a little bit as far as timeline, but fast forward the tape. So obviously we get a lot of folks that come in that are interested in real estate, and question is, where do they start? And there's so many different strategies, so many different paths that lead to Rome, as we say. And so what do you specialize in and focus on today? And then I have a follow-up question, which is, what do you like to train? Because I know you have a focus on empowering female in real estate, which I want to get to in a second. But tell me what you like today, and also kind of what you specialize in teaching, and how do you empower women in real estate as well?
Yes, I've helped thousands of real estate investors. And the one thing that I always say is that each person is at a different path. We can't really put everything or, group everyone in one path. And the number one thing is that when you are talking to a person, you need to understand, what do they have? Do they have time and money, or do they know what they're doing but they don't have money and they have time? It's almost like a triangle. It's like time, expertise, and money. So which of the three do you have? And you have to have 2 at least of the 3 in order for you to start. So for newbie investors who don't have a lot of money, if they don't know much about real estate, then they have to have either money or at least the time to put into this, to learn. So there is what we call in my Ignite program that you need 4 things. It's almost like building a building. You need the foundation, and those are the 4 things. And that is, you need the foundation. First of all, you need to know where you're at in order for you to where you want to go, as we talked about. Do you have more money or do you have more time? Where you at? Then you have to know the market. If you're going to invest in any area, whether it's in the US, in Florida, California, in Toronto, in Vancouver, you have to learn the market before you invest in it. 3, you have to know what strategy, because there's so many strategies. There is lease to own, there is multifamily, there is buy and hold, there is second suite. And I see investors that every time they see someone made money, all of a sudden they want to jump there. I call it the shiny penny syndrome.
Yeah, I was gonna say, chasing the big shiny object, right?
And they can't do that. So they have to have at least an idea. And that's what I talk about in the program, is that what are some of these that are around you if you're a newbie, and which one is better fit for you as a real estate investor. So this is important. And the last foundational pillar is the numbers. You have to understand the numbers. You cannot go to a new home sales office and people get you excited, and they use all these sales tactics of like, you're gonna buy right now or you're never gonna be able to get this again, and you end up buying something that doesn't cash flow, and you haven't done the numbers and all of that. So those are the most important. Starts with you, how much money you make, what can you afford, and then the market, understanding the market, then the strategy, and then the numbers. Those are the foundations for anyone starting in you.
Very good, very good. And this is obviously being a female and wanting to empower other females in real estate. But when did you realize that was a focus that you wanted to undertake?
Like at the beginning of my career, working with real estate investors, they were all men coming to me, and I'm like,
Hmm.
where are the women? How come there's no women? And even when men would come to me, I would say, where's your wife? Where's your daughter? Like, bring them on. You never know, they might like it. Like, I mean, I love it, and I never thought I would be able to do it. Maybe someone else in your family would. So I started inviting all these females, and then to the point where, like, okay, men and women can lack confidence, but women lack confidence a whole lot more than men do, because men are the headhunters. They're the ones that, have to make it for the family. But there are some amazing women, but don't think that they are capable. Again, going back to my dad, and what he taught me is that they're all capable, but they don't know how capable they are. And that's when I had to switch and change my niche from helping everybody, but to helping more the ones that need help, which is the woman. And that's how the Females in Real Estate Conference was born. I thought I was going to get maybe 10, 20 women. The whole room was filled. I had the capacity of the room was 100, and I had women waiting outside to get in, and I couldn't get everybody in. The following year it was 500, and then we stopped because of COVID. But women are amazing investors. And I know you have a 15-year-old, and I'm going to encourage you to take her with you, because we do rely a bit more, I would say, because there are a lot of intuitive men, but women rely a bit more on intuition. I teach them how to also understand the numbers, and they have to understand that, but also intuition is very, very good, because sometimes the numbers might make sense. You go into a building or a house and you go, it still doesn't feel right, and I don't know what it is. And that's your intuition.
Yeah, and I would tell you that is a spot-on statement. Women have the sixth sense that men don't, and it's funny. So I don't know if you know who Dave Ramsey is. He's a very well-known, financial guru and many other things. But his wife, he takes her when he's going to look at any sort of buildings to kind of get not just the numbers, but kind of her guttural read on it. And when he hires people, does the same thing. And so my wife and I have kind of joked about it. Yeah, so she'll sit in with when he's hiring somebody as well, and my wife and I have talked about that, because I've got this really bad habit. I see the good in everybody, so I could have a mass murder in front of me, but I'd somehow find the good qualities, and my wife looks right through them and says, no, you're missing the point here. So I couldn't agree more that there's an intuition that women have, and I would say we had a mastermind meeting here about 2 weeks ago, and we went and looked at one of the flip properties that we're working on, and I was sharing with them, sometimes the house kind of talks to you. You kind of get an energy and a vibe, and sometimes you just walk in and know that this place is mine, and I can see this being a good investment. And then other times you walk in and it could be a decent place, could be a great place, but there's kind of that opposite vibe that maybe tells you to steer clear. And I would agree, women have that sense much more than men. No question, no questions.
100%. That's amazing. That's amazing. I didn't know. Thanks for sharing.
Yes, absolutely. So I've got a couple other questions, and I may kind of hop back and forth in the chronology. You have obviously a very adversity-filled background. I think that's probably a safe way to describe it. And your energy and your attitude is amazing. I've got to say that. You see people that have had bumps in the road, and they kind of hang their hat on that, and they live their life kind of in the past, and poor me, and there's none of that with you. But if there was one life lesson that you could share with our listeners, what would that be?
Really, I mean, there's a lot of life lessons. I'm just trying to think of what would be very, very important. Is I honestly will start with gratitude, since we just had Thanksgiving,
Love it.
weekend in the US. And I would say that gratitude is the seed for everything. You have to really, really be thankful for where you are, no matter how bad it is in your life. Someone else has it worse out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to remember. I remember being in that refugee camp. There were nights where we did not even have food, not even food. And my mom would go and we would get bread and we would dip it in tea to eat it. And as I was eating that, I would always think, I wonder who else, I'm so lucky. I wonder who else in this camp that doesn't even have that. So no matter where you are, no matter who is listening to this episode, is think of all the good things. Don't focus on, if you're going to focus on a ditch, you're going to end up being in a ditch. If you're going to focus on something great, then you're going to attract also greatness. And even when you're around, maybe this is the other one, if you're around people that are going to suck your energy, just say thank you. Don't like hate on them, just say thank you, and then move yourself. You're the one that you need to move yourself and go around people that will lift you up. That's so important. Go people with that maybe can believe in you and what you're doing, and that's so important.
Yeah, that is such great advice. We did a podcast a few weeks ago with a gentleman, and we talked just about the gratitude and how he starts his mornings and spends 2 to 3 minutes after the shower and just focuses on what he's grateful for, and it just has this mindset shift that triggers his whole day. Have you ever heard of a book called Man's Search for Meaning by a gentleman named Viktor Frankl? Yeah, so for those that don't know what that is, Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, and Tahani, there was a story in there that I'll never forget. In fact, I was chatting about this just the other day, that they were lucky to get anything to eat, and there was a bowl of hot water, and it had a fisheye in the water. I don't know if you remember this from the book, and Viktor Frankl was so grateful for the flavor that fisheye would give the soup. And he found that gratitude in every little thing, and he survived, and obviously, lived a long life and taught millions of people some of the hard-fought lessons that he had to go through. But there were people that had the opposite approach, the opposite mindset, and the ones that didn't find gratitude and didn't have that positive outlook, the ones that didn't make it in the end, at least as a whole. And so, yeah, gratitude is one of the most powerful things. And one of my favorite quotes is, when you look at life through the eyes of gratitude, it's an amazing and magical place. And I've always believed that. So yes,
so important, Scott. Thank you for sharing again. That is so important also for all the investors that are listening to this to know, because look, you can buy your first house, or whether you're buying your first building, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you will come. I can assure you 100% that there will be issues and challenges and problems that you're going to solve. And if you can just think of yourself as a problem solver, or you could always switch to what is the lesson and the gift in this issue that I'm learning, then your whole mindset will change, and then all of a sudden it's not as big. People make problems a lot bigger than they are, and you need to kind of see, okay, what does it feel if this was easy? How can I solve this if this issue was to be solved in an easy way? So always be grateful for even those challenges, because they still bring a lot of greatness. Like, if it wasn't for that marriage, I wouldn't be in Canada. I wouldn't be a land developer. I wouldn't be owning 5 companies. And look at all the things that have actually inspired from just only that one thing, but and the attitude behind it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's it. It's all about the attitude and the mindset. So, well, I will say that I feel like I'm talking to maybe a quasi-famous person here. You gave a TED Talk. We're very impressed by that. I've got to ask about that. That was really, really neat. And so what did you talk about, if I may ask, and how was that experience as a whole?
Adversity. That's exactly the same topic.
Is it really?
Overcoming
Fantastic.
adversity, yes. Because we all will come to a challenging maybe part in our life that we need to kind of see how we look at. It was an amazing experience. It was nerve-wracking, because the night before my talk, I was going to talk about something else, which is, again, real estate related and building, businesses and all. And they're like, we got to change that. And we want you to talk about your story. So it was a little bit different than what I expected. But if anyone wants to listen to that TEDx talk, they can go to my website, of course, and it'll be there.
Fantastic.
Or Google my name and it will be there. It's on YouTube as well.
Very good. Very good. Well, just a couple other quick questions, and these are some of my favorite curiosity questions. Do you have a morning routine that you adhere to every day?
100%. 100%. I will not take any calls or do anything before 10 a.m. For me, I have to have some kind of meditation, some kind of exercise, and or breathing. When you say meditation, it could be also a breathing exercise. Walking for me is huge. I love walking. You have no idea. For me, like just going out and being in nature is so important. And I have to have my coffee. It's like this is also, it's
It's
very
critical.
important. Yes. Yes. And then of course for me also there is a night rituals, and that is looking at what the next day is going to be about, what I'm, what have happened today, that I have like books and upon books, and for each, one of my companies, I have a book that I use, what I need to do and not do. I'm still an old fashioned. I know a lot of people that use the computer or the iPhone, but I still use, books. So, but it's very important for anyone to be purposeful with their day. Like, if one thing you could do today that would make the day worth it is very, very important. We get caught so much in the mundane of doing a business. Oh, I have to return this phone call, I have to do this. But it's very, very important that every year you focus on, I mean, some people can focus on one project. I focus on 3 projects per year. So it's very important that you do something on a daily basis, of course, weekly and monthly, and also quarterly, towards that one goal. And then, as long as you keep moving yourself towards that one goal, then, it's going to be achieved. But if you're just going to, put that one, the goal in your calendar and never visit it again, then, it's not going to be done.
That's probably one of the best piece of advice that you don't hear a lot in business, is that focusing on the most important things. It is we're at a certain level where there's a lot of mundane minutia things that certainly could be done every day. At my home office, I literally have 5 different notes in different places, and that say, "Are you focusing on the most important thing right now? Are you focusing on what's going to move the needle? What's going to make you closer to achieving your goal?" And it's one of the things that they don't really teach you. But boy, if you're not careful, you can get sucked into all the things that don't move the needle, don't get you advanced, and you're busy all the time. But are you busy being productive, or busy just being busy? In fact, I think it was there was a real famous basketball coach named John Wooden, before both of our times. He was, I think, in the 50s or 60s, and was one of the winningest coaches ever. But one of his phrases was, "Don't mistake activity for achievement." I always thought that was really good. Yes, because a lot of people are really busy, but are they achieving? So,
Achieving, yeah. And then sometimes you might delay. You say, "Oh, I can get to that goal next year or in 5 years." But honestly, like I'm now, I've already surpassed my mid 50s, and I'm like, holy moly, like I can't even believe that I'm here. Like there is no way. Like time passes by, fast, and we have to really, use every minute. They always say, there is a saying, and I'm not good as you are at actually remembering these sayings, but the one thing, money, it's so easy to make and make more of it, but time, you could never make more of it. So for anyone that's listening to this podcast, is like, really be very, very purposeful with where you spend your time, and spend it with those that uplift you, and spend it on projects that I was doing a meditation that the person that was doing the meditation, or taking you, through this whole thing, it says, if it doesn't move you at a core, this one goal that you want, then it's not the right goal for you. So you need to go beyond, something that is beyond what you think, in terms of moving you on the inside, emotional goal, not just only a goal. It's not like about having a car, but it's about what the car would do for you. It's not about having a house. I always say, nobody buys houses for the bricks and the mortars. People buy them for what they do, and for us and our lives. People buy them so that they can also create better living situations for tenants. So it's what the house does for you, and it's not about the bricks and mortars.
yeah, that's really good. That's really good. If you don't have the grit or the inside, that emotional drive, which could also correlate to desire, that the what does the goal really mean? And in fact, we're talking about this the other day. Sometimes when you're writing goals, having not only the emotional of what it could do for me, but if you don't achieve it, what could that do? What is the pain factor going to be? And a lot of people don't want to talk about that. They want to say, look, I want to see all the good if I can achieve the goal, but if I don't achieve it, I don't want to discuss that. But there's merit, and sometimes saying, if I don't make this, then this is going to affect my family or my kids or whatever the case is, and that pain can be just as much, or fear of the pain can be just as much a driver as the high or the accomplishment that you've achieved. And so kind of having that desire inside that moves you, that's really, really great advice. Really great advice. Well, Tahani, I've got to tell you, you've got a great energy, and it's no wonder you've achieved so many wonderful things in life. Congratulations on all of your success. It's been really a privilege to be able to chat with you today. You've got a lot of things going on, 5 companies, but if folks wanted to work with you, find out more about you, and then how do they find you, and in what capacities could they potentially work with you?
Well, I mean, they can visit www.tahani, which is my first name, TAHANI.ca for Canada. And then there is the options there for them to go and then see where they fit. Again, it's where you are right now and what's best for you right now. Always, people want to jump sometimes ahead, like, miles ahead. But you have to remember there's beauty also in the whole journey, in the process, because as we buy our first house, we're going to learn much about it. Then we're going to buy a second or a third. We're going to learn more. And as our portfolio grow, we grow too. Because, it's a different type of person that can actually build houses than the person that just bought their first, house. So just don't be so hard on yourself. As a real estate investor, just be gentle on yourself and say, this is a process and this is a journey. And I got to make the best of it of where I'm at right now in my life. So, and so Tahani.ca, I guess I went on a different,
It's all good. By the way, I've got to say that might be the coolest website domain I've ever heard. So just Tahani.ca. I mean, that's you're big time when you just get to put
like
your first name in the whole domain, right?
Like when people ask me for my last name, I say, forget about my last name. I'm like an Oprah, like a one name.
That's right. You're an Oprah. That's right. I love it. Just one name. That's all you need to know. Well, Tahani, again, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this. I appreciate your time. I know that our listeners are going to get a ton from this. And again, privileged getting to chat with you. Congratulations. Wishing you much, much more success.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much for having me on. And I know we talked a lot about my stories, but if you want any, anything else to talk about specific strategies or development or anything else in between, I would be more than happy to come back and share with your audience.
That's a great idea. I would love that. In fact, that's funny you say that, because I was thinking some of our come from, and maybe just my curiosity. I'm always fascinated just by people and their backstories and what makes them tick and what inspires them and excites them. And I know I'm not the only one that shares that, but this is a real estate podcast, and we do want to give real estate content as well. So we would love to have you back and dive a little deeper into some of the strategies and how we can give some value in that capacity as well.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, guys, this was the Real Estate Investors Money Matrix. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for another one very soon. All right.